When David was little, he had so many questions. Like, why is the sky blue? Why are the clouds white? Why are people's skin tones different? But Howard didn't care about any of that. All he wanted to know was why David kept leaving his toy cars all over the stairs. To let Howard recover in peace, Mary sent David over to stay with Grandpa. Once inside, David pulled out a box of toy cars, hoping Grandpa would play with him. But the old man was just worried. He was afraid if he crouched down, he'd never be able to get back up. Seeing David's disappointment, Grandpa thought of another way, a different way to play with the cars. Grandpa he loved that spark of wonder in David's eyes. It reminded him exactly of himself when he was young. Hearing Grandpa's praise, David wished this day would never end. But Grandpa dropped a dose of reality. Time doesn't wait for anyone. Just like that, 2 years flashed by in the blink of an eye. Grandpa eventually brought David home. Mary was complaining that the tutor she hired for David had already been waiting in the house for hours. When Grandpa heard this, he was furious. He felt that basic common sense shouldn't need a lecture. It was just putting more pressure on David's childhood. When David tried to read, he stumbled over every word. Yet, his 2-year-old sister, Lisa, could already read fluently. David couldn't understand it. Why was his little sister so much better than him? Frank tried to comfort him, saying there's nothing wrong with being ordinary. But David, he really wanted Mary to be proud of him too. He told her he made some art in the kitchen. The moment Mary heard that, she knew it was trouble. Sure enough, the entire kitchen was covered in graffiti. She really wanted to give David a piece of her mind, but David didn't get it. They were both drawing, so why did Lisa get nothing but praise while all he got was a lecture? Howard, he tried his best to find something positive to say, but looking at the ruined kitchen, he just got mad and dragged David out. David sat by the road, feeling dejected as he looked at Lisa's bike. He thought about everything Grandpa had once taught him, but by the time Howard finally finished up, Howard and Mary learned from a therapist that the reason David kept acting out was actually just to get Howard's attention. So, the doctor suggested Howard spend more quality time with David. Taking the doctor's advice, Howard took David out camping. David was so excited for the trip, he even packed a ton of gear. But instead, Howard took David to a cheap motel. Once they were in the room, Howard just watched TV while David played with his camping gear alone. Their rare chance to bond was wasted. When they got home, David felt more depressed than ever. Mary gave him a half-hearted question about the trip, then immediately shifted her focus to Lisa, asking how school was going. Lisa showed off a new award she'd just won. The family showered her with praise, while David was left out in the cold. Howard tried to comfort David with some cake. David handed Howard a certificate he'd just drawn, hoping his dad would be as proud of him as he was of Lisa. But the reality was that compared to Lisa's real trophy, Howard just tossed David's drawing aside. It sat there completely ignored until David turned 10. The whole family was celebrating and even got him a cake featuring his idol, K.R. the Clown. But by now, David had long stopped watching that show. His family didn't seem to notice or care. They even asked David to say his old childhood catchphrase. But before David could even blow out the candles, Lisa got a text. She'd been named Student of the Month again. Mary made a huge deal out of it. But today was supposed to be David's big day, so that night, David and his best friend, Milhouse, were out with their slingshots, smashing streetlights. But out of all of them, there was one David refused to break. Milhouse wanted to know why. It turned out that was the light right outside Grandpa's window. Suddenly, the cops showed up. While the chief was distracted, David vanished. He'd slipped into Grandpa's room. That's when the old man brought out a birthday gift he'd been saving for him. It was the BMX bike David had been dreaming of. Howard and Mary were too afraid he'd get hurt to buy it. But Grandpa believed that everyone gets hurt sooner or later. If you don't do what you love now, you'll regret it when it's too late. Several years passed and David was a completely different person, but his parents still cared way more about Lisa. Mary was taking her to summer camp. Before leaving, Mary warned Howard, "This might be your very last chance to bond with your son. I hope you make it count." So Howard tried to get close to David, but it was too late. David didn't feel that connection to Howard anymore. Howard, being himself, gave up when things got awkward and went out for a drink. Instead, with Howard gone, David invited all his classmates over for a wild house party. He ended up in a closet with one of the twins, Terry, to hook up, only to realize it was actually Sherry. That gave David a heart attack, so he scrambled out of there. Then David caught a strange smell coming from upstairs. He opened the door and found Howard getting high. Maybe it was the smoke, but Howard actually opened up. He admitted that when David was born, he was terrified because it meant he wasn't a kid anymore. He had to actually be responsible. The truth was Howard was just like David. He'd craved his own parents' love and never got it. Since he never had it, he didn't know how to give it to David. Howard hugged him, hoping they could start over. But then Howard let slip how he really felt. He said he didn't care if David was a failure as long as he stayed by his side forever. Feeling heartbroken, David left home and went to find Grandpa to talk it all out. Grandpa encouraged David to find whatever he was passionate about and wear that pride on his sleeve. With Grandpa's support, David entered a BMX championship and made it all the way to the finals. In that last leap through the air, David ignited. Throw on a helmet, grab some instant noodles and a bottle of water, and just live off that while you work. With the machine finally finished, Bart felt like he had found true freedom for the first time. He was finally free from Lily, or so he thought. Even though Lily saved him, she ended up stealing the spotlight from him yet again. Years later, down by the beach, Bart is making a living drawing portraits for tourists. Milton invites Bart to his graduation party, but Bart just mocks him for graduating in the same class as Lily, who is 2 years younger. Then Nelson joins in on the teasing. You're asking why he looks so old. It's because he sold his own pituitary gland just to buy a sports car. At the party that night, the old bully Carney already has kids, and his kids have kids of their own. Ralph joined the army, and Milton is busy telling his old classmates all about his life at a party school college. Bart can see Milton is having the time of his life. There was no way he was going to skip his best friend's party. But during the party, Milton's parents start fighting again. Seeing how upset Milton is, Lily goes over to comfort him and tell him it's okay. That one kiss makes Milton fall head over heels, and now he wants to date Lily. Bart completely loses it. First his parents' love, now his best friend. Everything is being taken from him. For years, Bart has lived in Lily's shadow, but Lily has something to say about that. Every time things go wrong, you blame me. You have so much artistic talent, but you just let it waste away. You're an idiot because you think you need a miserable life to be a real artist. If you want to blame me for that, then fine. Lily's harsh words finally snap Bart out of it. Maybe it really is time to find a career that actually fits him. Years later, Bart opens a bike shop in memory of the old man. Inside are his hand-drawn awards and a portrait of his mentor. Nelson stops by to see him. He's had a synthetic pituitary gland, one of Lily's inventions, implanted, and he's back to normal. He came to apologize for bullying Bart when they were kids. Bart's confused why he's suddenly being so nice. Turns out, Nelson has been dating Lily lately. Lily hasn't seen Bart in years and was worried he still hated her. But Bart isn't angry at all. In fact, he's grateful. He thanks Lily for helping him finally become a true artist. His wall is covered in his most precious memories, but Lily notices she isn't in any of the drawings. Bart pretends it's no big deal and invites them to stay for a few drinks. The siblings finally bury the hatchet. That's when Nelson realizes Bart is actually the famous, mysterious artist El Bardo. Even now, Bart still has a lot of questions, just like when he was a kid. But mostly, he just has questions about life itself. Actually, a lot of times it's not that parents don't know how to love. It's that they're like Homer. They didn't get much love from their own parents growing up. Back in those days, things were tough. It was a time when actions spoke louder than words. The love they knew was seeing a parent's silhouette working in the kitchen at dawn. It was the hands tucking you in at night, or the worried face staying up all night when you were sick. They weren't hugged or given gentle encouragement. So when they became parents, expressing deep emotions felt foreign or even embarrassing. When we stop wondering why they couldn't be as gentle or open-minded as other parents and start thinking about what they went through to become the people they are today, that resentment starts to fade. We don't just see a bad parent anymore. We see a child who grew up and is trying their best to love within their own limits. The guitar music at the start of this episode is by an American indie rock band. This song was the theme for the 2014 movie Boyhood, which took 12 years to film. While the plots aren't exactly the same, the themes are identical, a life being pushed forward by time. This episode's story is just like that movie, simple and real. That's why it's become the highest-rated episode in 20 years. It even earned nominations for the Annie Awards and the Writers Guild of America Awards. When Bart hides in the nursing home and looks out the window, that shot is actually a nod to the 2006 movie A Scanner Darkly by Richard Linklater. The animation style at the beginning of this episode is also inspired by his work. There are plenty of other little details too. For example, the old man's car is likely the famous Studebaker Commander from the last century. When Bart is studying, you can see a nursery rhyme book next to him called Jack and Jill. That's a classic song that's been around for ages. Back in 2011, it was even adapted into a poorly rated movie. It's a bit like how some filmmakers try to cash in on well-known names just for the recognition. Later, while Lily is drawing, Marge is reading a book called What to Expect When You're Expecting. This shows that Marge was already pregnant with Maggie at the time. That book is a huge bestseller in the US and was even named one of the most influential books of the last 25 years. And guess what? They turned that into a movie too. At least that one got decent reviews. In Lily's room, we can see posters of Marie Curie and the Mexican painter Frida Kahlo. Interestingly, Frida Kahlo also made an appearance in the movie Coco. When Bart is painting by the sea, he has sketches of Woody Allen, Marilyn Monroe, and Clint Eastwood, the star of A Fistful of Dollars, sitting next to him. The one in the top right is a bit hard to make out. Does anyone recognize who that is? Finally, Nelson's outfit looks a lot like Jim's from the 1955 movie Rebel Without a Cause. The slick-back hair, the red jacket, and the white shirt, it's a perfect match. I've wanted to cover this episode for a long time, but I was waiting for the right music. I needed something that fit the mood perfectly, and I found it with an instrumental track by Linkin Park. That's why I save some of these top-tier shows. I want the presentation to be perfect when I finally share them. Anyway, thanks for the likes and for following along. I hope you enjoyed it. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.